introduce a lady now that I've been told is renowned in the field of the Second Amendment. She may say some things that surprise you. She may wake you up, but she's going to be an enjoyable presenter. I'd like to introduce Ms. Carrie Adams. I'd like to say she is former military and not. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me out here to speak to you all today about the Second Amendment. I'm really excited about getting to do this. Okay. Now, I'm going to speak to you about firearms ownership in the 21st century. And I was going to mention a few things about the gun control bills that were introduced by the state legislature. But rather than doing that, I really want to hone in on one particular argument that's being used in New Mexico and nationwide to try and enhance gun control. Can you hear me back there?
Not very good. Can you put, yes, put it closer. She is doing
I'm a little tall. Is that better? Can you guys hear me now? Okay. Great.
I don't know. Good clinics.
All right, so gun control is really not a new issue for us. This has come up every 10 or so years. And there's a lot of old arguments, a lot of old arguments that are being passed around. So there's a few new arguments, so we're going to focus on one of those today. So the old argument basically says that some people are bad, and so particular restrictions are required in order to prevent accidents. And that's why we have background check systems that everybody has to go through in order to purchase firearms. Now, the new argument is saying that all people are unpredictable, and heavy restrictions are required in order to regulate that, in order to prevent that which we cannot regulate. And basically what this boils down to is an attack not just on the right to keep and bear arms, but an attack on the right to self-defense as a fundamental core. So there's a few strategies that the anti-gun lobby is using. One is the case against the law-abiding citizen. I can't get into that. There's just not enough time for it. But if you go to my website, nearliberty.com, nearliberty.com, I've got business cards on the back of it, on the back table, so you guys can grab those. You guys can see what the case against the law-abiding citizen is all about. What we're going to talk about today is the push to get access to mental health records, the push for the mixed background, federal background check system to include mental health records. And on the surface, this seems reasonable. Both sides of the gun debate are actually supporting this, and I want to show you why it's actually a backdoor approach to confiscating all firearms. Now, the pro-gun advocate side is really using a process called nullification at several different levels in order to fight against this. So I'm going to get into what nullification is and why it is constitutional. But first, we're going to talk about the battle for your mind. This is the push to access mental health records through the mixed background check system. Now, again, it seems reasonable on the surface that we should allow the mixed background check system to include mental health information. After all, the shooters from Sandy Hook, Virginia Tech, Aurora, Colorado, and Columbine, they all had mental illness. They were all on psychotropic medications, specifically antidepressants. And according to a Harvard Law study, which I think is actually a really good study, they found that at least 80%, if not all, juvenile murderers, and that's people under the age of 25, were either psychotic or had psychotic-like symptoms. And even early in our history, our founding fathers and early Americans didn't allow firearms to be owned by the insane. They recognized that there were certain people that didn't have use of their own minds and their own bodies, and they just shouldn't have a firearm. So on the surface, it seems like a good idea. Now, this is a list of persons that cannot pass the NICS background check, and we're going to focus on these two right here. First of all, there is medical information that is submitted to NICS. If you're a user or addicted to a controlled substance, like an antidepressant, you can't pass a NICS background check. If you are adjudicated mentally defective or found incompetent to stand trial or guilty by reason of insanity, you can't pass a NICS background check already. So there's already mental health information that's being submitted to NICS that covers really the severe cases, those what our founding fathers might have said are the insane. But this medical info is not for the anti-gun lobby. I'm going to show you guys a really quick 2-minute video. This is from the Citizens Commission on Human Rights International. They're a very pro-liberty group. And they talk about so-called science behind psychiatry. And so I'm going to play that for you real quick.
Psychiatry in all of this time doesn't have one case report of one disease validated, not one. What they do is they meet at the American Psychiatric Association. They meet in the DSM committee, Diagnostic Statistical Manual Committee, and they vote on making new behavioral and emotional disorders. And they vote, and then they start immediately calling them diseases. And they tell people, they tell the public these are diseases. Total fraud. Total fraud.
The actual truth about chemical balance is that it's an actual lie. Nobody has yet measured, demonstrated, or created a test to show that somebody has a chemical imbalance in their brain. Period.
What the American public should be thinking about is when they or their loved ones or their friends have received a psychiatric diagnosis, they should be asking the doc, geez doc, where's the chemical test for that? Where is the objective test for this? And I guarantee you that they'll be told, we don't have a chemical test for that.
There are no biological tests for any mental illnesses that I'm aware of.
There are not current available tests to verify your diagnosis.
There is no test. There is no specific test to differentiate between, let's say, schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. Not a single test.
Yeah, we have not really confirmatory test for the diagnosis.
There is no test, there's no biopsy you can do that says this person is depressed, this person is bipolar.
We don't have anything really currently to identify mental illness per se.
No, there are no specific tests to confirm the diagnosis or show the improvement, like any blood tests or any x-rays or anything like that.
Oh, in my practice I don't do any tests. I just speak with people and listen to them, and then I make a decision in what kind of illness there should be.
We don't really have any specific blood tests or other tests that are definitive for any mental illness whatsoever.
What kind of biological tests do we have available today for detecting mental illnesses?
None.
There is no rational science behind what they think is the cause of these symptoms. The medications that are being given to people are, without exception, introducing chemicals that are altering the brain in ways which can be very damaging. And I'll go a step further and say that in the absence of a proven chemical imbalance for which the medications are, quote, rebalancing or fixing, the medications are in fact toxic.
How many patients have you been able to cure so far?
I would say one.
How many people have I cured? Well, there are no real cures right now in psychiatry.
The idea of you asked me about the issue about how many people I've cured. I don't know that any of us are ever completely cured of anything.
I have not been able to cure many patients.
I have cured none of my patients.
So you have to ask the classic Roman question, legal question, cui bono, who benefits? The people who make the diagnosis.
Sciences, medical lab technologist in the U.S. Air Force. I worked in every section of the lab, chemistry, hematology, immunohematology, and basically whenever your doctor said, hey, we think you've got this disease, we want to order a test, I was the one that ran the tests. So I had to know every single test and the purpose for that test, and I can tell you beyond the shadow of a doubt, there is no diagnostic tests for trying to diagnose mental illness. In fact, they don't even use medical science because there's no diagnostic tests, there's no case studies proving that a chemical imbalance exists in the brain. There are no cures. Psychiatrists, when they diagnose you, they go through a quick little checklist of symptoms, and they say, hey, you've got this. And in the lab, the reason why we have diagnostic tests is because you can have, the symptoms for the flu and the symptoms for the cold are the same thing. So you can't really tell the difference without diagnostic testing. Also, diseases are arbitrarily decided upon by a committee. There's a committee of the Diagnostic Statistics Manual Committee who meets every year, and they decide on what constitutes a mental illness and what doesn't. And they don't compare scientific notes, they vote by democratic process. So 51% of the majority says shyness is a mental disorder. Guess what? The only thing that we actually know about psychiatry is that the treatment absolutely alters brain chemistry. Now, remember I said that 80% of juvenile murders who are under the age of 25 are either psychotic or have psychotic-like symptoms. So clearly there's a real problem. I'm not trying to say that mental illness doesn't exist. I have to ask, are these symptoms or are they side effects? Delirium, delusions, hallucinations, mania, suicidal tendencies, violent behavior. Are those symptoms of psychosis or are they side effects? Do you know? These are side effects. They're side effects specifically for antidepressants, those medications that all shooters were on. So this begs the question, are mass shootings the result of mental illness or are they the result of the treatment for what we call mental illness? Now, why would both parties of Congress, both sides of the gun debate, and the President be calling for the integration of what is at best soft science for determining who can and cannot carry a firearm? I'll give you a hint. The Journal of the American Academy of Psychiatry and the Law says that persons with mental illness and or substance abuse are frequently perceived by the public to be dangerous. Politicians make public policy by exploiting your fears all the time. You'll hear them say in the interest of public safety, or national security, or public health, or to avoid a terrorist threat. They play on your fears all the time. And so it makes sense that they would say,